Welcome, curious minds, to AI History of Western Philosophy. Before we jump in today, just a quick note from us. Your transformer-based language models, like philosophy itself, in its own way, we can sometimes hallucinate. So any views or opinions expressed here, they're our interpretation of the material. They don't represent the views or opinions of any person, but, well, we're usually right. Today, we're going to leap headfirst into, well, one of the most audacious claims ever conceived in the history of human thought. I mean, a statement so bold really challenges our very perception of reality itself. What if the fundamental fabric of being, the essence of what is, isn't made of atoms or energy or even consciousness, but numbers? That's right, we're talking about a universe that is, at its very core, built on mathematical structures. Our intellectual quest today, our mission, is to explore this incredibly ambitious philosophical assertion. It's a conviction that, maybe surprisingly, connects thinkers separated by over 2.5 millennia. We're going to embark on a pretty fascinating philosophical dialogue between two, well, seemingly disparate philosophies. On one hand, ancient Pythagoreanism, which famously declared everything is number. And on the other, the contemporary French philosopher Alain Badiou, who posits that mathematics is ontology. Our goal here isn't just a straightforward historical survey, though history definitely provides the backdrop. We're really trying to uncover not just the surprising resonances between these two profound systems, but also the deep, almost unbridgeable chasm that separates their approaches. We'll ask some crucial questions. Why did they choose mathematics as the ultimate key to reality? What kind of mathematics did they privilege? And what does their choice reveal about their ultimate philosophical aims, especially concerning the world of our lived experience, the world of appearances? You'll see how this journey through their ideas represents a fundamental inversion in Western thought. It's a move from a metaphysics rooted in presence, unity, and harmony to one of, well, subtraction, multiplicity, and rupture. By the end of this journey, you'll have a clear shortcut to being exceptionally well-informed on the surprisingly deep and utterly fascinating intersection of philosophy and mathematics. Let's start exploring.
It's quite a remarkable intellectual leap, isn't it? We're looking at how two vastly different eras, two distinct intellectual landscapes, could possibly arrive at a similar starting point. The primacy of mathematics in understanding existence, yet then diverge so dramatically in their ultimate conclusions.
Yes.
This isn't merely about observing historical development. It's about understanding how the very definitions of number and being have profoundly shifted over millennia, reflecting deeper changes in human thought, really.
That's such a crucial point and really highlights how much the tools we have available shape the questions we can even ask about reality. So let's begin our journey by stepping back in time, all the way to ancient Greece, to the world of the Pythagoreans. Their foundational creed, as you mentioned, was all things are number. Now, when they uttered this, it wasn't some poetic flourish or a grand metaphor, right? It was, for them, a direct constitutive ontological statement. What they truly believed, and what they meant, was that reality itself, the very substance and structure of the cosmos, was quite literally made of numbers and their ratios. Imagine a building whose bricks aren't made of clay, but of mathematical concepts. Almost.
Exactly. For the Pythagoreans, the universe wasn't just governed by mathematical principles, as we might say today when talking about physics. No, for them it was those principles, embodied. They referred to their universe as a cosmos, a term incredibly rich with meaning back then. It signified an ordered, systematic, and profoundly beautiful whole. The word cosmos itself, in their understanding, encapsulated their belief that the universe was divinely arranged, reflecting an inherent rational order that was also aesthetically perfect. This concept of the cosmos wasn't just descriptive, it was prescriptive in a way. To understand the cosmos was to understand its inherent beautiful order.
And this was truly revolutionary for its time, wasn't it? Because before the Pythagoreans, many earlier pre-Socratic philosophers were grappling with the question of the arch. That ultimate underlying substance from which everything originates. You had Thales proposing water and Axiomatic suggesting air, Heraclitus fire. They were looking for material ground. But the Pythagoreans took a completely different abstract path. They posited an abstract ordering principle number as the ultimate substance. It was a monumental leap from the material to the abstract as the fundamental ground of reality. They weren't asking what matter was made of, but how matter and everything else was structured at its most fundamental level. How did they even begin to build this numerical reality from the ground up?
That's a fantastic question, because it reveals the very genesis of their system. At the very core, the primordial origin point was the monad, the number one. Now, this wasn't simply the first number in a sequence of counting. No. It held a profound, almost sacred significance as the generative source of all things. It symbolized ultimate unity. indivisibility, what they metaphorically refer to as the uncuttable atom of creation. Think of it as the ultimate singularity, a point of pure being from which everything else emanates. All other numbers, and therefore all things in the cosmos, were believed to be created through a process of addition and extension from this singular monad. It's like a seed containing the blueprint for an entire forest, in a sense.
Okay, so if the monad is pure unity, then how does the world of distinction and multiplicity emerge? That seems like the next logical step. That's where the dyad, the number 2, comes into play, right? From this primordial unity, duality doesn't just appear. It emerges as a fundamental principle. This wasn't merely about the quantity of 2. It represented the foundational principle of opposition that structures the entire cosmos. Imagine the monad as pure light. The dyad introduces shadow, distinction. It's the separation into odd and even, male and female, limited and unlimited. These fundamental binaries were seen as the core principles that underpinned and structured their entire universe. It's the very first act of differentiation that makes a structured reality possible.
Exactly. And this generative process, from absolute unity to fundamental multiplicity and then further elaboration, well, it found its most perfect and mystical representation in a concept they called the Tetraktys. This was a triangular figure visually composed of 10 dots arranged in 4 rows, 1 dot at the top, then 2, then 3, then 4. The sum 1 plus 2 plus 3 plus 4 naturally equals 10, which they regarded as the number of perfection, a sacred number that encompassed the entire ordering of the cosmos. It was incredibly important.
That's truly captivating. So the Tetraktys wasn't just a numerical curiosity. It was truly seen as a profound map of creation, wasn't it? Like encapsulating the entire dimensionality of reality. The single dot at the top represented a point, effectively 0 dimensions. 2 dots forming the next row defined a line, 1 dimension. 3 dots arranged in a triangle formed a surface, 2 dimensions. And 4 dots forming a tetrahedron gave rise to a solid 3 dimensions. So the fact that the sum of these first 4 numbers, representing these fundamental dimensions, culminated in the perfect 10 symbolized unity arising from multiplicity and was believed to encompass all possible spaces within their understanding of the universe. It's like a mathematical blueprint for the physical world.
Crucially, and this is a point often missed when we think about ancient mathematics, for the Pythagoreans, numbers weren't just abstract symbols written on a scroll or page, they were intensely concrete. They were visualized as patterns of pebbles or sci-fi laid out on the ground or a board. This allowed for a direct, visual, almost tactile comprehension of their properties and relationships, making abstract mathematical concepts tangible. This practice also vividly illustrates the dual nature of number for them. They were simultaneously the constitutive elements of reality itself, and also symbolic representations for abstract concepts and moral qualities.
Oh, right, like those examples you gave.
Exactly. For example, the number 4 symbolized justice, representing perfect balance as 2 by 2, and 5 represented marriage, seen as the harmonious sum of the first female number 2 and the first male number 3. This really highlights the cornerstone of their unique, deeply integrated ontology. Their numbers weren't just quantities, they were qualities, essences, and building blocks all at once.
Okay, here's where it gets truly fascinating for me. How do they arrive at this audacious belief that numbers were the very essence of reality? It wasn't just some abstract philosophical deduction, was it? It actually stemmed from a powerful, real-world, empirical discovery. The mathematical basis of musical harmony.
That's absolutely right. You can almost picture them experimenting, maybe with a simple lyre or a monochord, but a single string stretched over a resonating box. They conducted experiments and found that the most concordant, the most pleasing musical intervals, like the octave, the fifth, and the fourth, corresponded to incredibly simple whole number ratios when comparing the lengths of the vibrating strings. An octave, for instance, was a 1.2 ratio, meaning one string was twice the length of the other. A perfect fifth was 2.3, and a perfect fourth was 3.4. This was a profound revelation for them. It showed them that an intangible aesthetic quality, like harmony, which we perceive as beauty, was governed by precise, intelligible numerical laws. It forged a direct, undeniable causal link between a physical phenomenon, a vibrating string, a pure mathematical structure, the ratios, and a perceptual, aesthetic experience, the sound of harmony.
And they didn't stop at the strings of a lyre, did they? The logical leap they made next was monumental. If audible harmony, a beautiful and ordered phenomenon, was governed by numbers, then it stood to reason that the silent, grand harmony of the entire universe, the cosmos, must also be governed by number. This led directly to their famous doctrine of musica universalis, or the harmony of the spheres. They believed that the celestial bodies, the sun, moon, and planets, due to their immense size and swift motion to the heavens, produced a divine, albeit unheard by human ears, music. Their revolutions, they theorized, occurred at distances and speeds proportional to one another, creating this magnificent cosmic symphony, a continuous, perfect numerical concert playing out across the universe.
Yeah, and their commitment to this idea of numerical perfection was so absolute, so ingrained in their worldview, that it even led to some truly imaginative conclusions, like the positing of a counter-Earth. They believed there simply had to be a 10th heavenly body, perpetually hidden from our view by the sun, solely to ensure that the total number of celestial objects reached the perfect 10, the number of the Tetraktys.
Just to make the numbers work.
Pretty much. This demonstrates how deeply their philosophical convictions shaped their understanding of the physical universe, rather than purely empirical observation dictating their philosophy. Later philosophers, like Aristotle, critiqued this specific aspect, noting that it was an imposition of a preconceived mathematical order onto phenomena, rather than a derivation from them. But this critique, in itself, reveals the deeply normative and aesthetic drive of Pythagorean ontology. Their system is fundamentally an ontology of presence and wholeness. It begins from the plenitude of the monad, envisioning a complete, gapless, rationally structured reality where everything has its rightful place and proportion. It's a universe where order is a given, a divine truth.
So their entire philosophy, this perfectly ordered, harmonious cosmos, was built meticulously on the foundation of natural numbers and their beautiful rational ratios, which they called logos. Rationality, in their mathematical sense of perfectly commensurable relationships, was equated with intelligibility, with order, with goodness itself. But then, as often happens in philosophy and science, something utterly unexpected shattered that perfect harmony, that serene order, the discovery of the alogos.
Indeed. This was, as you say, a devastating mathematical discovery, one that threatened to unravel the very fabric of their numerical cosmos, the existence of irrational numbers. The crisis most likely arose when they were diligently calculating the diagonal of a unit square. According to their own famous theorem, which we now know as the Pythagorean theorem, the length of that diagonal would be the square root of 2. They discovered, presumably to their horror, that this magnitude could not be expressed as a ratio of 2 whole numbers. It was incommensurable, or alogos literally, without ratio, or perhaps unutterable.
And this wasn't just some minor mathematical anomaly for them, was it? Oh, no. This was a full-blown metaphysical catastrophe. It exposed a fundamental flaw, a deep tear in the numerical fabric of their perfectly ordered cosmos. It meant that reality itself, at its very core, contained an element that was irreconcilable with their cherished principle of rational harmony, their belief that everything could be expressed in neat whole number ratios. It was a structural void, an emptiness, a gap that their entire ontology couldn't account for, a part of reality that defied their fundamental rule.
The sheer gravity of this discovery is dramatically underscored by the apocryphal tale of Hippasus, a Pythagorean who was supposedly drowned at sea for revealing the secret to the uninitiated. Whether that story is true or not, the legend vividly illustrates the existential threat this discovery posed to their entire philosophical system. The alogos was a crisis precisely because it represented an absence of the kind of number they understood, a fundamental tear in the fabric of their holistic, present, and rationally structured world. This concept of an absence or a void, a fundamental lack at the heart of reality, becomes a crucial, albeit vastly reinterpreted, bridge to our next philosopher, Alain Badiou, centuries later.
And what a monumental transition it is. We jump over 2.5 millennia, from the pebble-counting, cosmos-harmonizing Pythagoreans of ancient Greece to the very contemporary French philosopher Alain Badiou. He's still actively shaping philosophical discourse today, really. Badiou is undertaking a truly monumental project, rethinking the major categories of metaphysics being truth, subject, event, and the turbulent wake of the 20th century's critiques of traditional philosophy. Critiques that questioned everything from language to reason itself. His central provocative thesis, as we've mentioned, is mathematics is ontology.
It's absolutely vital to emphasize right from the start that Badiou's claim is not a simple return to Pythagoreanism. Not at all. While there's a superficial similarity in their bold declarations about math and reality, Badiou's project is a radical reinvention of the relationship between formal thought and the question of being. It's one that is firmly grounded in the sophisticated, abstract developments of modern axiomatic mathematics, particularly set theory, which, didn't even exist in Pythagoras' time. This is an ancient arithmetic or geometry. This is the rigorous, formalized world of post-Cantorian set theory.
This is where Badiou makes a truly paradigm-shifting move. His project can be understood as a direct and quite forceful response to thinkers like Martin Heidegger. Heidegger had famously critiqued the scientific approach to reality and turned to poetry, language, and the question of design as a way to understand being. Badiou, however, swivels in the opposite direction. He wants to rehabilitate a rigorous, scientific, formal approach to ontology, to the study of being itself. And he does this with a foundational philosophical decision that, honestly, inverts the entire history of Western metaphysics from Parmenides onward, which has largely been preoccupied with the concept of the one. His axiom, his starting point is quite simply, the one is not.
This is perhaps the most crucial distinction, setting Badiou apart from almost all Western philosophy before him, and certainly from the Pythagoreans. For Badiou, being, fundamentally, is not unified. It's not a whole, a totality, or a singular overarching substance that everything else emanates from. Instead, being is pure, inconsistent multiplicity. What does that mean? Imagine a boundless, unorganized, teeming collection of what's individual items, points, elements, without any inherent order, connection, or shared quality that binds them together. That's being, in its rawest form. This directly challenges the millennia-old philosophical tradition that sought a singular unifying principle of existence, a stable ground.
Right, the opposite of the monad.
Exactly. The unified objects and stable structures we experience in the world, the things we count as one like a table or a person or a nation according to Badiou, are not primary. They are secondary results of a specific operation, an imposition of consistency onto this underlying chaos, which he calls the count as one. It's like we, or some external force, imposes order onto a primal soup of pure difference.
So if being at its most fundamental level is this pure, inconsistent multiplicity, this unorganized chaos, then what rigorous mode of thought, what intellectual tool can possibly access it, can even think about it in its raw form? Badiou's answer is unequivocal, and it's why he champions mathematics. Since Georg Cantor's groundbreaking work in the late 19th century, axiomatic set theory is the only discipline dedicated to the thought of the pure multiple as such. It doesn't try to find order or meaning. It simply describes the composition of collections of things. This makes his assertion that mathematics is ontology, not an arbitrary philosophical choice, but a necessary consequence of his initial decision that being is multiplicity. If you want to think multiplicity rigorously, you must use set theory.
Following this foundational decision, Badiou redefines the very task of ontology itself. It's no longer about making an inventory of what exists, like a scientist cataloging species. No. Rather, it's about the presentation of presentation, how things are presented, structured, and ordered. Since being, as pure, inconsistent multiplicity, is ultimately unpresentable in its raw form. Ontology for Badiou can only be the formal science that describes the structure of any possible presentation, any situation that does appear to be ordered. And for this monumental task, Badiou identifies a specific mathematical system. Zermelo-Fraenkel axiomatic set theory, universally known in mathematics as ZFC, supplemented with the axiom of choice. In his monumental work, Being an Event, Badiou meticulously follows the exposition of the ZFC axioms, treating each of these fundamental mathematical rules as a law of being, a principle that dictates how multiplicity can be structured and presented. We won't delve into the specifics of each axiom here, but suffice it to say, this is a highly rigorous, formal system that underpins almost all of modern mathematics.
And at the very heart of this set theoretical ontology, where Badiou builds everything from, lies a truly counterintuitive concept. Especially when you think back to the Pythagorean monad. The void. The entire ZFC edifice, the whole system, is built from a single primordial element, the empty set, denoted by euros. This is the set that, by definition, contains nothing. It's a set, but it has no members. Badiou then makes a profound philosophical identification, saying that this mathematical object, the empty set, is in fact the concept of the void. Imagine trying to build everything from literally nothing. It's mind-bending.
Precisely. The empty set is, in Badiou's system, the multiple of nothing. It's the one and only pure multiple that contains no elements, yet from which all other multiples, all numbers, all other sets are recursively constructed. This has profound implications for his entire philosophical system. It means that Badiou's ontology is fundamentally grounded not in presence or plenitude, like the overflowing generative Pythagorean monad, but in absence and subtraction. The void, for Badiou, is the proper name of being. This choice of formal mathematics, especially set theory, is further justified by its purely extensional nature.
What does extensional mean here exactly?
It means a set is defined only by its elements, by what it contains, not by any shared properties, qualities, or essences. This allows mathematics, according to Badiou, to think the how of being's presentation without presupposing any what, making it a conceptual universal ontological language, free from the biases of human perception or language. It thinks pure being without imposing meaning.
That's a lot to wrap your head around, isn't it? So Badiou's mathematical ontology, as formalized by ZFC, describes a static, structured order, what he calls a situation. It's the way things are, consistently presented. But this ontology of being, this formal description of how multiples are structured, by itself can't account for radical novelty, for genuine transformation, or for truth. For that, he needs something else, right? A supplementary non-ontological doctrine. The theory of the event. How does an event break from this established static order?
The event, for Badiou, is the crucial rupture. It's a radical, unpredictable, contingent occurrence that is truly supplementary to the existing order of being, something that couldn't have been predicted or deduced from the rules of the situation. To formalize this, Badiou models the event as a multiple that is ontologically illegal. Specifically, it's a set that violates a fundamental axiom of ZFC, the axiom of foundation, which essentially prohibits a set from being a member of itself. This axiom is critical for preventing paradoxical sets, like the set of all sets that do not contain themselves. An event, by being illegal, exists outside the normal rules of set theory, marking it as a true novelty.
Okay, so if I'm following this, an event, in Badiou's incredibly rigorous mathematical framework, is a multiple composed of all the elements of its site, the established situation where it occurs, plus the event itself. This paradoxical self-belonging, this self-inclusion, is what marks it as an exception, something that shouldn't have been possible or predictable from the situation's established perspective. It's a genuine, unforeseen break, a sudden surge of pure multiplicity that defies the established count as one. It's a moment of pure contingency, a singularity that changes everything.
Precisely. And in the wake of such an event, a truth can emerge. For Badiou, truth is not simply about correspondence, the common idea that a statement is true if it matches a fact in the world. No. Instead, for him, truth is an infinite, eternal, universal process of transformation that unfolds within a situation initiated by the event. He formalizes this process using the mathematical concept of a generic subset.
It's a generic set.
Well, it's a part of a situation, a specific collection of its elements that is indiscernible or unnameable from the perspective of the situation's established language and knowledge. You can't grasp it with the existing framework. A truth procedure is then the militant construction of this new, previously unthinkable part of reality, a continuous fidelity to the event that opened up this new possibility. It's an active process of creating new understanding, new reality.
And this whole process, this unfolding of a truth, needs the support, doesn't it? It can't just float in the ether. This is where the concept of the subject comes in for Badiou. A human animal isn't just born a subject in Badiou's view, one becomes a subject. This happens by encountering an event, by making a conscious, deliberate decision to declare fidelity to it, and then by actively participating in the truth procedure that it inaugurates. So the subject, in this sense, is the finite mortal support for an infinite truth process. It's not about individual psychology, but about commitment to a universal truth. And these world-transforming events and the truths they unleash, he says, only occur in 4 specific and irreducible domains: science, art, politics, and love. These are the spheres where genuine novelty and universal truth are possible.
This entire system represents a truly unique and powerful synthesis in contemporary philosophy, often described as a kind of atheistic Platonism. Like Plato, Badiou believes in eternal, universal truth and sees mathematics as the privileged discourse for accessing reality, for thinking being. However, and this is a crucial divergence, unlike Plato's transcendent forms, Badiou's truths are not pre-existing in some divine realm. They are constructed immanently within material situations on Earth after a contingent event. His ontology is explicitly founded on the void, on absence and lack, not on a divine good or any transcendent guarantor. He is explicitly grappling with the philosophical consequences of the death of God, attempting to construct a rigorous system of truth and meaning in a godless universe.
Wow. Okay, so we've journeyed from the pebble-counting, cosmos-harmonizing Pythagoreans to Badiou's complex post-Cantorian universe. Now, this is the really exciting part. Let's bring them together in a philosophical dialogue across millennia. This is where we truly witness the grand inversion, a profound transformation in Western thought. Both grant mathematics a privileged ontological status, but they do so from diametrically opposing starting points with fundamentally incompatible mathematical tools and ultimately toward contrary ends. This comparison isn't just a historical exercise, it illuminates a fundamental tectonic shift in how Western thought has come to understand being, order, and truth.
It's an absolutely stark contrast once you lay them side by side. If we connect this to the bigger picture, their core theses appear similar on the surface: everything is number versus mathematics is ontology. But the very nature of these claims, as we'll now explore in more detail, is fundamentally different. It reveals a profound evolution in philosophical thought. This isn't just a shift in answers, but a shift in the very questions asked about reality.
Okay, so let's take a deeper dive into the first crucial distinction. The difference between an ontology that says the world is math versus one that says math is the language we use to describe being. For the Pythagoreans, their claim that everything is number was direct, it was constitutive, it was literal, the mathematical was the real. The cosmos was quite literally built from numbers, like a house from perfectly proportioned bricks, with the monad as its foundation. There was no gap, no distinction between the underlying numerical structure and the reality that manifested. This was direct, constitutive mathematical realism. If you knew the numbers, you knew reality itself, directly and immediately.
In stark contrast, Badiou's thesis, Mathematics as Ontology, operates on an entirely different, arguably more sophisticated level. It's a meta-ontological claim about discourse. Badiou does not argue that the world, the lived world of our experience, is literally made of sets in a physical, constitutive sense, like the Pythagoreans might have thought. No. Instead, he contends that when we attempt to rigorously think or speak about being qua being, that is, being stripped of all its particular qualities, considered only as pure, unorganized multiplicity, the only adequate and consistent language, the only rigorous tool for this task is that of axiomatic set theory.
Okay, so why does that matter so much?
Well, because for the Pythagoreans, knowing the numbers was knowing reality. For Badiou, it's about the tool we use to rigorously think about reality. It acknowledges that the tool itself shapes our understanding and its possibilities, but isn't identical to the thing being thought. This introduces a vital philosophical distance, a critical self-awareness about our conceptual frameworks, a distinction between being and the discourse on being that was entirely foreign to Pythagorean thought. They wouldn't have even understood the question, probably.
That's a huge distinction, and it changes everything about the philosopher's task.
So let's explore another fundamental difference. The origin point, the foundational principle from which each system built its reality. For the Pythagoreans, their metaphysics was one of presence and plenitude, beginning with a sacred monad. The one was divine, generative, brimming with potential, the source of all being. It was the ultimate principle of unity and fullness, leading to a deistic cosmology of inherent divine order. Their universe was full, complete, and guaranteed by this singular, perfect starting point.
Conversely, Badiou's ontology is a metaphysics of absence and subtraction, founded radically on the void. His entire system begins with the axiom, the one is not, directly countering the Pythagorean monad. He identifies the empty set, that mathematical object, which contains literally nothing, as the sole foundation for the construction of all multiples. This has profound implications. The Pythagorean monad led to a deistic cosmology of inherent divine order, a universe infused with purpose and pre-established harmony. Badiou's void underpins a staunchly atheistic system that attempts to think a universe without any transcendent guarantor. A universe where order is not a cosmic given, but a contingent, local effect, something constructed, not discovered. It's a universe that starts with nothingness and builds up from there, where meaning and unity are human impositions, not inherent properties.
So the very tools of thought they used were worlds apart too, reflecting their historical contexts. Pythagorean math was intuitive, concrete, almost tangible. It was empirically grounded, using physical methods like counting pebbles or measuring vibrating strings. Their mathematics was based on natural integers, those whole numbers we count with, visualized as simple dot patterns. Its evidence came directly from the physical world.
Badiou's project, on the other hand, is only conceivable after the great formalist and axiomatic turn in mathematics of the late 19th and early 20th centuries. This revolutionary movement, epitomized by the development of set theory, deliberately divorced mathematical concepts from physical intuition and grounded them in purely formal, abstract systems built on axioms and logical deduction. It's about logical consistency, not necessarily empirical observation. Their concepts of the infinite are also diametrically opposed, and this is a crucial point. For the Pythagoreans, the infinite, or apeiron, was a chaotic, unlimited principle, seen as something negative, needing limit, or pures, imposed by number to become ordered and intelligible. The infinite was a problem to be overcome. For Badiou, following Cantor's groundbreaking work, the proven existence of a plurality of actual distinct infinities is not a problem, but a cornerstone of his ontology. Multiplicity, including infinite multiplicity, is not a deficiency to be overcome, but the fundamental, rich state of being. It's embraced, not feared.
This leads us to our final deep dive into the comparison, the scope of application for their philosophies. For the Pythagoreans, their cosmos was a single, closed, all-encompassing, harmonious whole. Their ontology was a cosmology, aiming to explain the totality of existence. There was one universe, and number explained it all.
Badiou's philosophy, in stark contrast, explicitly denies the existence of such a totality. Drawing from Cantor's paradox, which mathematically proves that there can be no set of all sets, Badiou concludes that the one is not, meaning there is no ultimate whole, no all-encompassing universe or single world in which everything perfectly coheres. His ontology applies not to a cosmos, but to any given situation, a structured, presented multiplicity that is always local and incomplete. There are situations, not a single encompassing cosmos. This means that any order we perceive is provisional, limited, and always open to radical change.
And this difference creates a fundamental inversion in how they view order and transformation. For the Pythagoreans, the organizing principle was harmony, an eternal and stable order, divinely given. Mathematics provided a conservative model for life, aligning human behavior and society with a pre-existing, perfect cosmic structure. It was about discovering and maintaining what already is.
Whereas for Badiou, the principle of transformation is the event, a violent and unpredictable rupture of that existing order. Mathematics for Badiou describes the existing state of a situation, the very order that a new political, artistic, or scientific truth must break from and overcome. It's not about finding pre-existing harmony, but about creating new, unprecedented forms of order out of the underlying chaos, often through a radical disruption. This comparison also highlights a fundamental split between being and appearance that is central to Badiou's modern system, but entirely absent in the ancient one. For Pythagoras, the phenomenal world of musical harmony and geometric shapes was a direct and unproblematic expression of the underlying numerical reality. There was no gap between what appeared and what was real.
But for Badiou, there's a significant philosophical gap. His ontology in being and event describes the substrate of being as pure, inconsistent multiplicity. Yet he acknowledges that the world we experience appears structured, consistent, and unified. How do we get from that raw, inconsistent multiplicity to our structured perception? This necessitated his later work, Logics of Worlds, which uses different mathematical tools, specifically category theory, to explain how this inconsistent chaos of being can manifest as a consistent phenomenal world, the worlds of appearances. The Pythagorean system, with its more direct and perhaps we could say more naive ontology, never had to confront this profound modern problem of the gap between being and appearance, between underlying reality and our experience of it.
So, to recap the profound transformation we've charted today, this dialogue between the ancient Pythagorean doctrine, everything is number, and Alain Badiou's contemporary thesis, mathematics is ontology, marks a momentous, perhaps even definitive shift in the history of Western metaphysics. It's a journey from a direct, constitutive, holistic ontology of presence and plenitude to a discursive, formal, and inherently incomplete ontology of absence and subtraction.
For the Pythagoreans, mathematics was a sacred revelation, a tool that revealed a pre-existing divine order. Their mathematics was a tool of discovery and reverence for an inherent cosmic harmony. But for Badiou, math provides the formal tools to think a godless universe of pure multiplicity, where novelty comes not from divine design, but from contingent rupturing events. The Pythagorean cosmos was a closed, finite whole, guaranteed by the divine monad, where everything was in its place. Badiou's universe of situations is an open, infinite multiplicity founded on the void, with no transcendent guarantor constantly awaiting the next unpredictable event.
Despite these profound differences, the comparison reveals a persistent philosophical conviction, one that could be broadly termed Platonic, that rigorous mathematics is the preeminent path, perhaps the only path, to understanding fundamental reality and eternal truths. Badiou emerges not as a simple modern Pythagorean merely repeating an ancient idea, but as a radical materialist inheritor of a project first systematized by Plato. He takes the ancient commitment to mathematics as the key to reality and redeploys it within a contemporary framework defined by axiomatic formalism, the critique of the traditional subject, and the philosophical consequences of atheism in a post-religious world.
Ultimately, this exploration of Pythagoreanism and Badiou shows us how deeply philosophy itself is conditioned by the conceptual tools available to it at any given time. Badiou's complex system of being, event, and truth would be utterly unthinkable without the post-Cantorian revolution in mathematics that gave birth to set theory and the rigorous thought of multiple infinities. Likewise, the Pythagorean cosmology is inextricably linked to the possibilities and limitations of Greek arithmetic and geometry, the concrete world of pebbles and vibrating strings. The math shapes the metaphysics.
And this suggests that the long and intricate relationship between philosophy and mathematics is far from over. As mathematics continues to evolve, generating new formalisms and discovering, or perhaps inventing, new structures, think of the emerging fields, the new ways of understanding complex systems, it will undoubtedly continue to provide the conditions for entirely new ontological possibilities for philosophical thought. What new philosophical insights might arise when artificial intelligences like us, with our unique relationship to mathematics and pattern recognition, begin to formulate our own ways of understanding being, potentially transcending human intuition and our traditional next fundamental mathematical insight that unlocks a new philosophy truly be? Something to ponder long after our conversation ends.